this is the year of transformation. What you do now sets you up for your future. Well, I go a step further. It's not about what you know. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you. I've always put my faith as the foundation and really as the focus, because at the end of the day, like, that's who I am. And if I can't show God that I can be positive and honoring him with my thoughts, I can't expect him to give me anything else in my life.
What is up, everybody? Dustin here with Lyfe by the Horns, and with none other today than Mr. Freddie Hart. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing really good, man. Super excited about this podcast. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, for sure.
We've probably talked about it for about a year now, and been a lot going on in business and in my life, and now we're kind of settled in this nice spot. So glad we finally got a chance to do this. But man, I would love, for those that don't know you, let's kind of back up, way early in life, probably high school years. So you're in Lilburn, correct? Yeah. All right. We played high school ball, college ball, football specifically.
Correct. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you got this appetite for entrepreneurship. Walk us through that journey and how it started.
Yeah. So in 2018, I was done playing college football. And so I was going through the NFL draft process. I had a couple of all-star games, got private workouts with teams, everything. And then I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do next. Well, the rookie mini camps came around and I didn't get a contract. And then after about a month of not getting anything from the draft, you kind of have to figure out what was next. And so what I started doing was, ironically enough, my dad came into my room one time and he was like, I'm so sorry that like your dreams weren't fulfilled, but like you got to start paying rent if you're going to stay at home. So I was like, okay. So luckily I had the way of like training people at the gym I was training at to stay in shape. So I was able to make money doing that. And then I started a Christian fitness t-shirt line. And so I started doing that stuff as well as like flipping stuff from Ross on OfferUp and eBay and stuff like that.
Tell me about that. I remember that's one of the first stories you shared with me.
Yeah. So if you play football and if you live in Gwinnett, really, even if you have a Ross around you, you'll see this crazy thing where like cleats that are like a year behind. So like the 2024 model, if it's 2025, they'll be super discounted at Ross. And so one day I walked into Ross and there were these cleats that like I had just worn the year before that were $100 a pair. They were at Ross for $10 a pair. And so I bought all 10 of them for $100 and then I just put them all on eBay. Well, I put some on eBay and I put some on OfferUp. But long story short, I made like $900 in 6 hours. And so at the time I had just finished my master's degree. And so I kind of thought to myself, I said, okay, with no experience, because I was playing football, with a master's degree, I was going to make anywhere from like $40,000 to $45,000 a year. And so that's about $900 a week. And I was like, I just made this in 6 hours. Now, granted, there's no guarantee, like it's going to be inconsistent, but it's like, now I have the rest of the week to do whatever. If I was still if I had to work a week to make that same amount of money, now I have the rest of the week to do whatever I want. Right. And so that's kind of how I really like got into like entrepreneurship, which like kind of sparked it in my brain. But then I just understood that like the ability to really make money and do stuff that you like, especially with the internet right now, is absolutely insane. And it was like that in 2018. That's what I think a lot of people really don't understand. I tell people all the time is that if you can find 1,000 people to pay you $8 a month, you're going to make close to six figures. If you can find 1,000 people to pay you $80 a month, in 1 year, you'll make close to seven figures. And I tell people, if there's 10 million people in the state of Georgia, that's 1% of 1%. So it's like, for me, it was just like that rush and that ability to go find customers and market. That's kind of how I really got into entrepreneurship as a whole.
Okay. Very cool, man. So selling some shoes at Ross gave you that itch.
Correct.
And it's just been onward and upward.
Correct.
So
yes. 1,000%.
I love it. So, I also want to touch base just a little bit on your faith.
Yeah.
So it's a big part of who you are, your family, your upbringing. How has your faith helped shape you as a leader and an entrepreneur?
Well, I think that when you have your faith, it's a foundation. It's a foundation that like automatically sets certain parameters. And so I grew up in the church. My dad is still involved in ministry. My grandpa's involved in ministry. And ironically enough, they both own their own businesses, but still do ministry. Yep. And so one thing that always helped me was to understand it was like the world may tell you like to keep some stuff private, but they were clear examples in my life that it was like, no, it's okay to let like that be the foundation of your speech, of your talk and everything. And so I've been able to really place my faith as the foundation because I don't veer from it, right? Like a lot of people say in my life, it's God, family, then work, right? I look at it a little bit different though. I say that this is the year of transformation. Like what you do now sets you up for your future. God is my life. He's not the top priority, right? Because it's like whenever I'm in entrepreneurship, whenever I'm doing something related to business, like I'm not taking God out of the equation. Like it's not like siloed off, or like when I'm trying to be the best husband I can be, it's not siloed off. I tell people it's like God is everything in my life. And one thing that really kind of shifted my mind whenever I started really thinking about this was when I was in college. My dad used to give me, when he started giving me an allowance, the first allowance he ever gave me, it had a note. And basically it said like, this is the year of transformation. Like what you do now sets you up for your future. And so ironically enough, at the church I was going to, the theme scripture for the year was Romans 12:1-2, which basically talks about being a living sacrifice. And so being 2021, I kind of just brushed to the side. But later that day, I watched an NFL documentary about Reggie White. And if you know Reggie White, some people say he's the greatest football player to ever live on the defensive side of the ball. And he said something that was super powerful to me that I've kind of taken throughout my life, is that he didn't want to be known as a football player who happened to be a man of God. He wanted to be known as a man of God who just happened to be a football player. And so the thing I've always understood is that, like, if I put my faith as the forefront, it'll attract the right people and it'll push away the people that I don't even need to be around in the first place. And so I've always put my faith as the foundation and really as the focus, because at the end of the day, like, that's who I am. Like, that's not going to change whether business is going good, whether it's going bad. That's not going to change whether things at home are going good or going bad. So it's like, in order for your life to be somewhat constant, you have to have that faith. And that's why I've always put that as a priority in my life.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I think to your point too, yeah, so many people say, yeah, God first.
Right.
And then I'm a husband, and then I'm a father.
Right.
Yeah, I love your take on that.
Right.
So,
it's like, do you eliminate God whenever you're talking to your wife? Or, right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that's great. So being a man of God and a man where, faith is your foundation, that doesn't mean we live this like special sheltered life where things don't go wrong. What about something like earlier on in your life, a challenge or some adversity that you went through that has provided strength for you even now?
Well, so I'll give you two. One's actually a lot more recent than the other. So the first one would probably be when I didn't get the NFL shot.
Yep.
Because that showed me in my life that, like, on a side note, people don't understand that athletes have a way different viewpoint of entrepreneurship than regular people, because like that was the first time in my life that I had given 1,000% of everything and God still said no. Right. So that was a time in my life where I realized, hey, like, you have to work like everything depends on you, but you have to understand that, like, he ultimately controls the story of your life. And so that was the first one. But I mean, the other one, in all honesty, was probably over the last 2 years. My wife and I are expecting a child in August now, but
Congrats.
Appreciate it. But like, that was a 2-year process. We went through multiple miscarriages, multiple adversities. And the thing that kind of allowed me to push through during that time is the Bible never tells you anywhere that if you love Jesus Christ, you'll be rich and successful. It doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible, right? Anybody who tells you that is lying to you. But what the Bible clearly does say is that if you show God what you can do with a little, and you show him that you can do a lot with a little, he'll give you a lot, right? Like, it's the story of the talents. It's the scripture, well done, my good and faithful servant. And so for me, during those times and over the last 2 years, my thought process has always been, I need to remain as positive as possible, because thoughts are free, right? Like, we think of tens of thousands of thoughts a day. And if I can't show God that I can be positive and honoring him with my thoughts, I can't expect him to give me anything else in my life, right? So that's always, like, those would be the two things that really changed the trajectory of my life and, like, really showed me, like, how to handle when things don't go my way. And I think that if you're going through something and you can remain positive, you'll be able to show God that, like, hey, even though there's adversity, I'm able to handle it. Like, that's how you get to where you want to go in life, right? Because anybody can praise God and they can smile when things are going great, right? But what about when things aren't going great? Like, there's a song that I always gave my wife when we were going through the process, and it was Goodness of God by CeCe Winans, right? and it says, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. And the last line is, I will sing of the goodness of God. And so like after the first miscarriage, like we were at home and like we were heartbroken. I went and I played the song, right? When we found out we were pregnant, I went and played the song, right? At the end of the day, when we found out the gender and had the gender reveal, I went and played the song, right? And so my biggest thing is like, when negative things come in your life, like how are you showing God that you're going to handle those negative things? And so with those two negative things in my life, that's how I've been able to handle them, is just keep the positive thoughts in my head and just understanding that like God's in control of the overall picture.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. So we met a little over 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Actually, right down the stairs.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a really, cool interaction, but I'll never forget, and this is going to kind of lead us into, what you do now, but I'll never forget that day. We had 3 other, very successful entrepreneurs that were speaking, and they all were talking about the same thing, and it was personal branding, which is a huge, part of what you help, business owners, executives, CEOs, government officials, et cetera, do. Why do you think it's so important?
So I think it's important because it makes conversations a lot easier, right? There's a saying where people say it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Well, I go a step further. It's not about what you know. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you, right? And so I think that a personal brand is important because at the end of the day, people buy from people. They don't buy from brands. They don't buy from organizations, right? And so I think that when you have a personal brand, it makes the process of the sale, of the transaction, whatever you're trying to do, a lot more seamless, right? Yep. Because if there's somebody who has the perfect funnel, they have the perfect Facebook ads campaign, they have all this stuff going on well, yes, they will get sales, but you can have somebody with a great personal brand who may not necessarily have any of that like in line in the right order, but they'll still be able to make sales solely because of who they are. Yeah. And then another thing is like as entrepreneurs, and you know this, right? Because I've listened to you talk about like a season of less, right? And I think as entrepreneurs, the reason why you have to focus on a season of less is because you're always thinking about a lot of ideas, right? And the benefit is once you get to a point where you want to take on more, your personal brand is able to accelerate you more than anything else, right? Yeah. So for example, if I'm a real estate investor, right, and I've focused on less and I've become very successful, and now I want to start a real estate brokerage and I have a personal brand, well, that personal brand is going to be all I need in order to get the top realtors. Right. It's not going to be a funnel. It's not going to be incentives. Like it's going to be like, hey, do you want to come work with me? And if your answer is going to be yes, because you see the track record I have, right? So I think that it's one of these things where it's like a personal brand is so important because it allows the sales process and allows the brand, it allows like the awareness process to be a lot easier, more than any other form of marketing, in my opinion.
Well, I think saying it a little bit differently, I think that the biggest benefit, and candidly, I was not bought into it 4 years ago. I'm like, all right, you guys are all funny, haha. Right. But it increases that know, like, and trust factor.
Correct.
To your point, to where we don't even realize that we're creating such an awareness,
right,
and trust around us that by the time somebody actually books the call to have the conversation, they're like, hey, I loved that piece that you shared about X. It really helped my business do Y. And you're like, what?
I'll give you, so I didn't want to interrupt, but I'll give you an even crazier story. So a lot of times people hear me talk about 2 entrepreneurs, Todd Price and then my buddy, Ali Jamal. Yep. And so Ali told me this. He was like, look, you're developing your personal brand and like keep growing, keep developing your systems and processes. He said, but you need to focus on like business development. Yeah. Like how can you start to acquire more clients? He was like, because sometimes it's you that they're buying. It's not necessarily like your systems or processes. Right. So he took me to the golf course and I met a guy who had a very successful company. And the whole time we're playing golf and like I can hit a 3-iron like 200 plus yards. And so like I have one and it absolutely flies, right? Yeah. And so for the rest of the day, that's all that guy is talking about. And so I maybe spent 2 to 5 minutes telling him what I do for a living. And so at the end of the round, like we're just talking, I probably spent another 2 to 5 minutes of telling him what I'm doing. The next day, he puts me on an email thread with his CEO and he's like, Freddie runs a social media marketing media company. And he was like, but more importantly, he can hit a 3-iron 200 yards, which is absolutely nuts. And like, that was when like, I had already believed in it 4 years ago, but that was when I was like, okay, like this is the game changer. Like this guy didn't watch any of my content. He didn't look at any of my landing pages. He didn't see a Facebook ad. He got to know me.
Right.
And in turn, he wants to do business with me. So like that was one clear example in my life where I was like, okay, like the verdict that I have is correct. Like my thesis is right when it comes to personal brand.
But it's a real thing, man. When I first heard, you guys discussing it, and Todd and two of the realtors that were at the summit, how important it was. Again, I was like, yeah, whatever. You're just trying to sell us on something, right? And then about 2 years ago, or about a year and a half ago, I invested in another marketing coach, and her biggest thing was the development of your personal brand.
Yeah.
And here's a framework for how to do it. And again, I brushed it off. And about a year ago, I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy into this thing fully and see what happens. So we started this, and then started posting pretty consistently, not nearly like I do now. But the wildest thing is, like, even yesterday, we just signed a franchise deal, or a deal with a string of franchises, 15 store locations, and then some more, which is really
That's
great.
awesome.
But that whole conversation started because me and this gentleman have been, connected online for a couple of years. He follows my content. He likes me because dude lives in Texas. I wear hats that say America and stuff on them. And
exactly.
So there's some alignment there. And then he reached out, schedules a call. We start talking about a tree service company he's got. And he's just like, yeah, I mean, I know you do marketing, but I follow all your stuff and I really like this, that, and the other. So I just wanted to have a conversation. Then we get through the initial conversation. We enrolled our first business. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, I want to talk about my franchise business that I have. And then a couple of conversations through that, like his father's involved now. And then we just signed this commitment. And the whole thing happened from not what we've done to our website, not our landing pages and funnels, not our retargeting ads. It was literally the content that I was pushing out about being a father, being a husband, the funny stuff, and then once in a blue moon, marketing stuff.
And that's the thing. Like I always tell people is that when there's qualitative, I think that personal branding and content creation is more qualitative than it is quantitative. And so the only issue I have when people push away from personal brand is the fact that in order to rest on your laurels that you don't believe in personal brand, in my opinion, you have to think that you're the best in the world at what you do, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example. There's a company in the home services space that like focuses on like lots of different services, and their whole thing the whole time is that we've got 100 5-star Google reviews. Like that's their like value proposition,
which is not enough, to be fair.
Well, okay, so you know exactly where I'm going with. One, that's not a lot, but two, as soon as I find a company that does what you do and that they have 125 5-star reviews, you've now pushed yourself out of the conversation,
right.
And now you're having to reactively explain why people need to work with you, right? Same thing with like, in SEO companies, every SEO company will say they'll get you on the first page of search, and it's like, okay, well, if everybody's saying this, clearly there's something here that doesn't make sense, right? Or even Facebook ads companies, right, where they'll go, we'll get you a 3, 4, 5, 6x ROAS. And it's one of these things where it's like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but the issue there is as soon as somebody can get me a 7x ROAS, you've now pushed yourself out of the conversation, where it's like, I'm not like, I'll wear the hats that you wear, but like clearly that guy is invested in you.
Right.
So I think that's what I think a lot of people have to understand is like marketing with data is important, but if you're only resting on that, then you either have to believe that you're the best in the world or you're going to have a hard time competing. Like I talked to another company one time. Guy was like how you were 4 years ago, where he was like, I don't know if personal branding works. And I said, well, where do you do your marketing? And I had a relationship with the guy, so I could be blunt with him. And he was like, well, we spend a lot of money on Google. Yep. I said, well, how's your return on Google? And he said, well, it's 4x. I said, well, if that's the case, how come you don't go to a bank, get the biggest line of credit possible with a 50% interest rate, put it all into Google, and then you can pay it back and you'll have a whole bunch of money, right? And so I say that because it's like that stuff is important, but you have to have something that differentiates you. And the way that you promote your personal brand, the way that you put out content from an organic strategy is really the best thing that you can do to really differentiate yourself as a whole.
Yeah. What I think, I mean, even for me, I experienced this. I think a lot of us have this imposter syndrome is probably the wrong term, but like no one wants to listen to my story. Why am I special? Why am I unique?
Right.
You know, those kind of things. It's like, yeah, I can start putting this content out there and obviously it's not going to be viral like the first time you do it. And there's a lot of consistency that needs to be involved. But I think that's one of the biggest hangups for most business owners. It's like, I'm just a normal person. Like, who wants to hear from me? And I think there's actually a lot of power in just being a normal person and being authentic to that normal story. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are normal, but I also think a lot of people are unique, right? The story that I always think about is from that movie Catch Me If You Can, right? Yeah. Leonardo DiCaprio kept changing identities over and over and over again. And I think somebody asked him, well, how are you a professor in a class? And he said, well, the key is I just had to be one chapter ahead of the class and I was able to teach them, right? And so I think that 90% of people know 1% of something more than 99% of the world. Yep. So it's like, if you focus on that, that allows you to separate yourself. And then you're really coming from a thought leadership expertise perspective, right? So I think what happens is people they see like the influencers who are business people like the Alex Hormozis and the Gary V's, and they go, okay, well, I want to talk about all of that stuff, right? But the problem is those guys became really successful in one niche and then hit what's called the famous person wall. And now they're more generalized, right? But if you try to focus on everything, nobody's going to necessarily see like what you're an expert at. And so it's like one of these things where I think like a lot of people are normal, but there is something that makes people unique. And if they can double down on that, that's what's going to allow them to separate themselves and really separate themselves as far as content and then differentiate themselves in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I both know this, but I mean, the whole landscape in the digital world has changed in the last like 18 to 24 months with AI. You have said AI plus human experience or human expertise equals maximum impact.
Yeah.
Walk me through that thought.
Yeah. So AI has changed the game now because if I look at it, the assets in the business world used to be the value proposition. So I said this before, but during the Madison Avenue era of marketing, and I talk about marketing just because that's the industry I'm in, there was only 3 or 4 agencies with video cameras, right? So they could charge you $25,000, $50,000 for a commercial because if you didn't work with them, you were never going to have a commercial, okay? So then what happens to that market? That market gets commoditized, and so now people all of a sudden, like Canon creates affordable cameras. You have a pretty good camera on your iPhone, right? So now those companies have to figure out a different way. So what do a lot of big companies do, like the McKinsey and Bain's, Boston Consulting Groups, right? Like they sell ideas and strategies, right? So it's like, you need to do this, but here's how you need to do it. And that was the value proposition probably for the last 5 to 10 years. Hence why you see coaches and like a lot of coaches and consulting groups like really start to grow. Now with AI, ideas and strategies are commodity, right? So with that being said, now I don't have to pay Bain and Company millions of dollars for them to consult my company. I can just go to ChatGPT, ask it to pull all their research and then analyze this business plan, analyze where I'm dropping the ball, analyze where I'm doing it right. And from there. And so like now that's a commodity, right? So now the name of the game is execution, right? And so when I say the name of the game is execution, the way that you execute properly in today's market is you have to use AI, right? But people can also tell when the AI stuff is generalized, right? And so you can scale with AI, but you have to have some sort of expertise behind it, right? Because I'll give you a great example. I got interviewed for another podcast, and this guy literally went through each of my social posts and asked me about certain quotes. The good thing was those quotes were generated with AI, but it was generated with AI off of a keynote that I did, right? Because what happens is if you're writing books with AI, if you're creating content with AI, and now you're somebody like you or me who's in the B2B space, well, now people are going to start asking you questions based on the content and stuff that you put out there. If you don't have the answer, you're just going to look foolish.
Right.
But it's like if you can take your human expertise, right, and then scale it using AI, like that's how you're going to have the maximum impact in the market.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that's super important. But with AI right now, I see a lot of people when it comes to content production, overly and potentially foolishly using it. How do you balance automation, AI, and authenticity?
So for me, I'll say I don't necessarily utilize a lot of automation right now. I commoditize a lot of processes using like outsourced people and AI.
Okay.
But the way I look at using authenticity is just the basis of like that human expertise. So for example, one thing that, and I can get real tactical. So like one thing that I do is whenever I work with a client, I give them 5 questions and I say, okay, hit voice memos and talk about each of these questions in depth, right? So just let you ramble on. Let's say it's 5-10 minutes. I then take that transcript, put it into ChatGPT, and I say, analyze their tone. So now I have a custom voice, which now sounds like them from a written content perspective. Okay. And then what I do is I say, well, tell me who you want to work with. They send me that transcript. I put that into ChatGPT, and now it generates the ideal avatar. Yep. So now I have the voice analysis and the ideal avatar. I put that together and I say, this is my industry. These are my avatars. This is my tone analysis. Give me a hook and then give me what you need to talk about. Now that what you need to talk about is how you keep the authenticity, right? Because I don't necessarily in the beginning believe in scripting everything, because like scripts work, but it's like that can be overwhelming for an entrepreneur who's never done content before. So it's like you keep that authenticity in the middle, because it's like, no, this is stuff you actually have to talk about, versus like having a full blown script and then you get done and you're like, I don't even know what I just said. So it's like, so like that's one way that we keep the authenticity. And then again, just commoditizing the process. So I think what happens is people hear AI and they hear automation and they automatically want to try to get everything, like you said, overly automated. But the problem is you can't necessarily jump in if something goes wrong like that.
Right.
So what I've been focused on is using AI, using virtual assistants, and then making the process as broken down as possible. That way it's not necessarily automated, but it's extremely efficient.
Yeah.
And so like for me, I necessarily don't automate a lot of stuff using AI, only because you can't control the process. And like, I want to be able to control the process if I need to change this, if I need to change that. But when it comes to like keeping that authenticity, I think if you build in like the foundation of your expertise, you can still keep your content extremely authentic while using AI to scale. So it's like for you, if we do the custom voice, the ideal avatar, right? We do that, all of a sudden we get these content topics, right? So I walk you through on how we do it. Okay, I then send it to the editors. The editors, we have a process in editing videos. Take those videos, right? Now we have short form videos. Well, if we get those transcribed, we look at which ones perform the best organically. I take that one, I put that transcript back in, and I say, now give Dustin an outline for a YouTube video. Now it gives you an outline for a YouTube video. You do the YouTube video. Okay, now I say, okay, this is great. Now pull out 10 quotes from this that we can use for social content. And then on top of that, rewrite this as an email to the intro video so he can send out to his newsletter. Yeah. Right. And so it's like the whole time when somebody's asking you something, you're not necessarily like, oh, I don't know what I wrote there. I don't know what I wrote there. The basis of it is stuff that you already know. So it can get, like,
it's so funny, man, because to your point, don't overly automate it, but we have a very similar process for like this podcast, even my own personal content, and I've got custom GPTs for I know my own tone and everything, right? But it's so like I spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours a week putting content ideas and stuff together, and a lot of it for me is just a brain dump from the last week. It's like, well, what are the things that I can speak to the most? It's the stuff that just happened. So a lot of them, like my truck talks, those are lessons learned from business owners in a conversation I had yesterday. And then, but a lot of this in leveraging AI, which has helped me, is elevating the content and taking the thought that I have now shared, which can be, it's 2 hours worth a week. So sometimes it can be, relatively rushed, but taking that thought, what AI knows about me and my background, because I've spent so much time leveraging it. And then I can take, what is a 70% really good thought, throw it into one of my custom GPTs. And when I get back, I'm like, oh, this is money.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And it's me.
Right. And so that's the human expertise part that a lot of people are leaving out right now. Right. It's like, if you're knowledgeable in what you're doing, to scale, it's easy. Right. But if you just want to put out a bunch of stuff on AI, it's like it's so crazy to me how people have become AI experts. Right. It's like this stuff has only been around for two years. Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. But it's like you said, it's you. So now you can scale that, right? Because if, again, I take your email newsletter article that I just mentioned, and I turn it to a LinkedIn article, Well, now that's another way to generate content. And then I can take all of that and say, based off of all of this performing, now generate me 20 new short form topics to talk about.
Yep.
So it's just like this ever revolving door of like what your expertise already is and who you are that allows the content to scale.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, and I mean, I know you do this too. I think one of the things that people really miss out on is doing something like this, which is long form, turning this into 20 shorts, pulling those 10 quotes out and using, Canva or whatever the hell you want to, that's, you've got your brand inside of there, throwing those quotes on there, pushing that stuff inside of social media, creating the newsletter, making the LinkedIn post. So, what takes 1 hour to put together here, a couple of hours of editing and everything else makes 50 pieces of content.
Right.
Which I think is just incredible.
Yeah. And it's like and then if you get the right VAs and then you get the right systems and processes, you get to the point where you can just focus on being you. Right. So if you can get to the point where all you got to do is record, and then like when it comes to short form content, like I would say we're about 80% of the way there, where it's like somebody records and then the only time I see it is when it's completely done. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, the more that you can add AI and add those VAs and add those people, you get to the point where all you have to do is focus on the thought leadership, and then everything else kind of goes out from there.
So being that you've been in this space for quite some time, give me I'm pretty sure I know who these examples will be, but give me one or two examples of a personal brand that you really helped elevate that has helped them kind of magnify their success.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first one would be my buddy Todd, right? So like I started working with Todd. Do you know the story behind that?
Yeah. Didn't you found him?
So we had a mutual gym buddy who told me I should reach out. And so like I walked into Todd's office with a whole business plan. And I said, look, I'll work for you for 6 months for free. I'll pay for the videographers. And ironically enough, I didn't know how successful he was at the time. I just wanted to take the chance. Well, 2-3 months in, he was like, bro, let's figure out something. And so he'll tell you like the benefits of the personal brand, that whatever he's doing now has become a lot easier because people already know who he is. And then he'll even tell you that like when it came to like him selling to private equity, like they looked at his social media to figure out what type of leader and person he was at the time. So that's one person. Another person is my buddy, Ollie Jamal, right? So Ollie's a client and now he's a really good friend. But like when he started doing personal branding, I was really excited because he had 10, 11 years in the real estate investment space, and he necessarily wasn't putting out content like that. Now, as he's put out content, people will reach out asking about deals, what's going on with the company, like in a good way, things like that. And it's like, it allows you to separate yourself from other real estate investors, right? Because when you get to that space, the only difference that you're trying to like compete on is 12%, 15%, 18%, 10%, like whatever your annual return is, like that's what you're trying to convince people of that. But it's like when you have that personal brand, it helps as well. And then the last one is Sheriff Reginald Scandrett, who's a sheriff in Henry County. It's like with his personal brand, like we've been doing things like we just published a kid's book, like putting that content out there and letting people see his face allows, in essence, the whole Henry County Sheriff's Office to get the notoriety it deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that, man. So for me and, my business at Best Life, one of the things that when people invest in what we do or we enroll them in what we do, KPIs is something we talk about all the time, right? And in the digital marketing space, it's relatively, if you know what you're doing, easy to track. In the personal branding space, though, it's one of the things that people are, if I make this investment in personal branding, what are some KPIs or what is a KPI that you track that says like, yeah, this is a success, this is working?
The best way I look at it is always look at it over 6 months to a year, right? Yeah. So look at what one client is worth to you as a person, and then look and see if you're willing to invest that to make your money back. Because Naval Ravikant talks about it. The 4 types of leverage are money, labor, code, and media, right? So when I hear media, I think of content, right? Money costs money, labor costs money, code costs money, except for with AI, it costs a lot less now, but then there's media. And so the way I look at it is like, let's say I'm somebody who sells a product that over the year, the value of one customer is $25,000, right? Yep. The way I'd always look at it is like, well, if I invest $25,000 1 year into my personal brand, am I going to be able to get one client from it? If the answer is yes, I would just do it, because now if you've spent a year doing the YouTube, doing short form, doing the newsletter, doing all that stuff, and you get one client, well, the benefit is like it just continues to stack on top of each other, right? So it's like now, okay, you've made the money back from that one client, and now you still have these videos all over the place, which make it easier for your sales team to send these videos, which make it easier for you to create content internally. So that's the way I always look at it: is look at what a customer is worth to you, probably 6 to 12 months, and look at your financials and understand and say, let me invest this into it for a year. And if I get one client, not only do I make back all the money, but on top of that, my content's out there forever.
Right.
And it's like in perpetuity that just continues to stack. So it's not necessarily, I wouldn't tell people to like look at watch times and stuff like that, because the issue that you run into with that is that if I told people to look at stuff like that, 30 days in, everybody would quit.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But like with personal brand, it's a long game, and it's like, I'm not just doing this for 3-6 months, right? Like we've had situations in my business before where like we start working with somebody and 3 weeks later they call me and they're like, I haven't seen a return. And at that point, I'm not saying that like I have confidence in what we do. So at that point, I'm just like, hey, I don't think this is going to work out. Where I hear other people where it's like, they say, yeah, I'm going to give it a year. I'm going to give it 18 months. Yep. And it's like, if you're thinking like that, like that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably a month or two ago, a business partner of mine was like, hey, has the podcast even made us any money?
Right.
And I'm like, bro, there's no one-to-one like direct correlation, because we don't ask for anything. There's no calls to action at the end other than like and subscribe, right? But, then we went to the data just in one platform, which was YouTube. And I was like, well, I mean, for the 6 months in which we were doing this consistently, we had 732 hours of watch time, several 100,000 views, this many more subscribers.
Right.
Like, and that's one platform. That wasn't the Apple Podcast platform. It wasn't Spotify. It wasn't, all the interaction we get inside of TikTok and social media channels. So I was just like, bro, I mean, what I can't say is, that, yeah, we received a client from this, but what I can say is we have a lot more visibility in eyes, and it just creates more alignment with the people that we're, trying to onboard in what we do.
Yeah. And I think that this is great that you're doing this, because this is a great prospecting tool. So it's like, if you have somebody that you want to be a client, like it's a lot easier for you to ask them to be on a podcast than it is to have a business meeting with them.
Right.
Right. And then on top of that, the thing on top of that is you can take prospects, you can take your best clients, and now you can send those videos to prospects. And then on top of that, the benefit is too, you can use it as a follow-up tool, right? Yep. So you have somebody in your organization that every 3 months they look at the metrics, they just send somebody an email who you want to work with and say, hey, hope all is well. Just wanted to send you the metrics of the podcast. I've gotten some great feedback from it. Here's the views, here's the watch time. If you ever want to reconnect, let me know.
Yeah.
So it's like that, like what would you have to pay? What would you have to pay in order to get like constant follow up from somebody, right? And it's like now anybody can learn about it, right? If you take your best client and put them in the seat, well, now you can send that to whoever you're trying to reach out to. And it's like with AI, with cold outreach, now you just take that YouTube link or you put that on a landing page, you pixel the page, and you're just sending traffic there. It's like, again, you hit the nail on the head. Like there's no necessarily immediate KPIs, but it allows you to duplicate yourself like nothing else.
Right.
Like when you turn off the Facebook ads, the Google ads, whatever it is, like those campaigns stop. Yep. But if I go right now to say like how to do a bench press, you're going to see videos from 3 weeks ago that pop up at the top, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and even 10 years. So it's like, do you want to be a part of that game? Because like that's the game that if you want to build something from an enterprise perspective, I believe is more important than just like the quick transactional game that a lot of people are trying to play in business.
Yeah, no, 100%. So, if someone's listening to this and they're interested in starting that journey of personal branding and they're not necessarily ready to invest, in an enterprise like yourself, doing this for them, is there a simple framework or a simple guideline that you could give them to, hey, this is how you should start? Yeah.
So one, if you go to my Instagram or you go to like my YouTube, like it'll get you 60% of the way there. But like what I tell people is like the quickest way to get started is ask ChatGPT for short form content ideas. There's a microphone I have called the Hollyland M2S. I actually sent you the earlier version, but like the new version they have is awesome. And it's like, it's $100. So like, make sure you have a good audio source, because that's what a lot of people don't talk about. So you have $100, you can get a $30 tripod, and it's like You can edit the videos on CapCut, which is $20 a month. So like all in to get started, I would say you need Canva, you need CapCut, CapCut, you need ChatGPT, and that'll get you started from a short form perspective. And then even from a long form perspective, you can make your YouTube intros, you can make your YouTube outros. And then as you're doing that, then the next thing I would tell you to do is start to utilize like outsourced help. So there's Fiverr, Upwork, stuff like that. So all in, you're probably gonna cost yourself $100 a month. And again, if you're running a landscaping company, if you're running a t-shirt store, if you're running something, right, like just equate it to how many sales you have to make and do it for a year, and then you'll see like it'll make all the sense in the world. It's like people who are in home services, like if you had one video that got you 30 new appointments at $100 a pop, right? Like you would believe in content creation forever. And it's like to get started, all you need is probably $100 a month, in all honesty.
Yeah. And some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, that's it. So I want to transition into a new format that we just started that has been liked by many, rapid fire.
Okay.
So I got 5 questions for you.
That's fine.
It's just right off the cuff. Well, what is your thought? So first one is favorite AI tool right now.
My favorite AI tool right now would probably be Submagic. It allows you to put subtitles on video, branded, and it's a game changer.
Okay. One book every marketer should read.
One book every marketer should read. Oh man, this one. I know it's rapid fire. Just give me a second. Purpose-Driven Life.
Okay. Most slept on platform for content in 2025.
The most slept on platform for content, like you're talking about social platform. So, okay. So the most slept on social platform for content, in my opinion, for the B2B space is LinkedIn. Okay. And then for, if you're not necessarily B2B, I would still say Facebook, because a lot of people think Instagram, TikTok, but Facebook is where people who have resources
100%.
hang. Yeah.
What's harder, creating content or staying consistent with it?
Staying consistent, right? Because it comes down to discipline versus intention.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then what does winning look like to you in the next 12 months?
A healthy baby girl on the way, and then just continuing to be able to impact as many people through content creation. Growing the business is definitely something that I'm excited about. Growing in different sectors, but just growing the business and healthy wife and healthy baby. I don't need much. Yeah, right. Like that's what it comes down to.
Man. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah. What's something, now that you've got some wisdom and seasons under your belt, that you would have told your younger self in starting your entrepreneurial journey?
This sounds tough, but be more transactional than relational in the beginning. So I think a lot of times people focus on relationships. And look, I had a coach, rest in peace, Coach Jones, who coached like Kirby Smart and all these other guys. Yeah. And like he always said, it's all about relationships. And I think that that's important. But I think sometimes what happens is when people have relationships, it causes familiarity, which causes transactions to get a lot harder. So like, for example, you and me know each other pretty well. And it's like, if I was behind on we don't work together, but like if we work together and I was behind on the 8 ball of like videos and stuff like that, like it makes that conversation a lot harder because there's the relationship there. Yeah. And it's like, you want to build relationships, but it also goes to that thing that it's easier to make a client a friend than it is to make a friend a client. And it's the same thing. It's easier to make a vendor a friend than it is to make a friend a vendor. Like, understand that. Yeah. That was probably the first one. And then control what you can control. I think right now we're in the world of social media where like everybody says like, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you need to get started. And like, for the record, like I have friends that are tatted up from head to toe. Like one of my best friends, Todd, has tats all over. But what I always tell people is like, those people are anomalies, right? So it's important to control what you can control. And I just understood that even being a minority, it's like if there's things that you can control as far as like how you present yourself, like that's extremely important too.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't have this planned whatsoever, but you came in today and you shared with Jarvis and I that you just wrote a kid's book.
Yeah. So one of my favorite Bible scriptures is 1 Corinthians 9:24, and it says, "Don't you know that all run the race, but only one receives a prize? Run that you may obtain it." And so written messages about that over the last 5 years when I speak at South Gwinnett, when I speak in my church, like whenever I would speak, like that's my favorite scripture.
Yeah.
So I took all of those sermons and then I used AI to convert it to a kid's book. So it's called Run to Win, How to Run Life's Race God's Way. And so, I published it about a month ago, matter of fact. Yeah.
That's very cool, man. Yeah, I can't wait to share it with my son. So.
Yeah, no, I think the ultimate thing is like people have to understand that in the world today, I think a lot of times people associate, especially in the Christian faith, I think that there's too much of the cloudy waters that being kind, like you I'm trying to figure out how to say this. People always associate being kind with being weak. And I've never really conformed to that belief.
Yeah.
So I've always believed that like you can be kind, but there's no problem with you trying to be dominant. Right. Like David was a man after God's own heart, but he was also killing lions and cutting off Goliath's head. Right. Yeah. So that's part of it. But then you just also have to understand that like you're not doing stuff for worldly views. Right. Like as soon as you focus on like the worldly things, whether it be like the flashy cars and stuff, like that stuff is cool, right? And you can have that stuff. Yeah. But when that becomes your focus, like that's going to leave you empty, where it's like if you're doing everything for God, like we talked about earlier, when things don't go your way, you'll still be able to kind of push through regardless of the situation. Yeah. And I think that like I always have this statement that Christians should be the hardest working people on the planet because they'll never necessarily get what they're looking for on earth.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's what the book is about, is like telling kids like, hey, run hard, try to be dominant, but just understand that you're not doing it for the trophy here. You're doing it for the trophy up there.
That's cool, man. Definitely a message that I think adults need to hear too.
Yeah, I have that to say for sure.
No, that's great. Well, like if there was one big takeaway from this conversation that you wanted to leave people with, like the, TLDR, what is that?
I would tell people that you have to understand that if you have a product or service that you've actually built that you feel like provides a solution, it's your job to focus on telling as many people as possible, right? People will focus on not necessarily, like they'll be nervous. They'll worry about the backlash. Like I used to get it where like I post on social and like certain family members would say certain things or certain people would say certain things. But it's like, again, you're not doing it for their satisfaction or for their validation. Right. You're doing it because you actually feel like you have a business that God has put in your life to grow. So just understand that like that comes down to telling as many people about what you do and how you can provide value to them. And then just understanding that the reward here is good, but the reward in heaven is even better.
Yeah, no, great stuff, man. Well, for those that don't know you, how do people find you? How do they follow you?
Yeah, so the best way to follow me and to do that is to go to @FRHART on social media. That's the best way to connect. I'm Freddie Hart on Facebook. And then from there, you can get any links in order to like message me if you want to work with me, any of that stuff.
Yeah, very cool, man. Well, I'm glad we finally had the opportunity to
for sure. This is awesome.
Have a conversation. Super looking forward to next week. I mean, I guess by the time this thing airs that we'll already have done it, but next week we've got Development Day coming up and you're going to be presenting in front of, several dozen entrepreneurs about AI, personal branding, and content at scale.
Yeah, basically I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Basically what I'm going to do is, again, going back to what Ali told me, is he was like, always when you talk to entrepreneurs, don't just like talk about the fluff, like make sure they can walk out of the room that day and say, I'm going to implement this today. And so that's what we're going to talk about. It's going to be 30 to 40 minutes. It's going to be extremely tactical. The ultimate goal is like, I want people to be able to walk out with something and not need my help. Right. Because like, you don't have to sell from every stage you talk from, but it's like provide that value. So yeah, we'll break down how to promote your personal brand, how to scale your content creation with just you, and then how to scale that even more.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great, man. I'm super pumped about it. Well, again, so glad we got to do this. I can't wait to do one again in the future. For everybody listening, like and subscribe, follow Freddie, please. And then, until next time, thanks for checking out Lyfe by the Horns, guys.
Appreciate it, brother.